Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure. Thanks for the introduction. I'm going to talk about managing soil health to improve human health and well-being. So begin with what are the ecosystem services that soil health supports? For example, global soil resource and its soil carbon stock is very important to food and nutritional security, to climate change adaptation, mitigation, stabilization, to water quality and renewability, and of course to biodiversity, in addition to food and nutritional security. And to harness these ecosystem services, policy intervention and payment to farmers and land managers for ecosystem services is a very important concept. So soil health and ecosystem services, another way to look at it is how it affects plant nutrients, nutrient cycling, nutrient retention, elemental transformation, nutrient delivery to plants, then water purification, storing water, green water, denaturing pollutants. Uh, Another important part is climate moderation, carbon sequestration, both organic, inorganic, mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, especially N2 and CH4. And of course, we have biodiversity, conservation, habitat, waste disposal, and interaction among them leads to several ecosystem services, including pharmaceutical antibiotics, disease suppressive soils, food quality, food safety, food nutrition content, industrial raw material, whole range of ecosystem services, including climate change adaptation and mitigation. Indeed, there is a strong link between soil and life. Essentially, all life depends upon the soil. There can be no life without soil and no soil without life. Dr. Charles Kellogg, formerly of USDA, indicated in his writings. And I would add to that my own belief and concept that rhizosphere, the root soil interface at a nanoscale, is the only site in the universe where the death is resurrected into life. So soil has that capacity to transform death into life. Soil indeed is a very rich source of habitat. A teaspoon of productive soil may contain 100 million to 1 billion microorganisms. Streptomycin came from soil, and many other things. Therefore, we believe strongly that the health of soil, plants, animal, human, environment, and the planetary processes is one and indivisible. On health of soil depends the health of everything else on the planet. And that brings us to the question of how Soil-Human Health Nexus operates. Human health, a fingerprint of soil health, can be improved by restoration of soil health of degraded, polluted, and contaminated soils. A restoration of soil organic matter content to above the threshold range of 1.5 to 2% can improve soil health and nutritional quality of the food produced on that soil. Many antibiotics, as I mentioned already, come from soil. Penicillin came from penicillium. Uncultured bacteria make 99% of all species in external environments are an untapped source of antibiotics. An antibiotic discovered from soil in Maine in 2015 can kill several organisms that affect human health. A new antibiotic, Tixbactin, came from soil bacteria that cause pneumonia, staph, blood infection, and almost 50% of actinomycetes isolated from soil are capable of synthesizing antibiotics. Another reason why soil affects food quality and human well-being, because the way food is produced and consumed affects the health of soil, plants, animal, people, and that's the One Health concept we already discussed. Soil health refers to, in simple terms, soil's capacity to sustain multiple ecosystem services for human well-being and nature, those which I have outlined before. And soil and diet, many uh, scriptures and ancient concepts. Hippocrates in 400 BC mentioned, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Uh, the Upanishad, the Hindu scriptures in Sanskrit, I have a common phrase: when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use, and when diet is correct, medicine is of no need. So says Ayurveda. And good food is a good medicine. That's a modern concept because that can prevent, reverse, and even cure diseases. But unfortunately, in spite of all this knowledge, we have serious problem of soil degradation. 40% of all land area, recent estimates indicate from FAO that is 40% is degraded, of which water erosion affects 1.1 billion hectare, wind erosion 0.6 billion hectare, salinization almost zero point 0.9 billion hectare. So soil degradation is really a serious issue that affects human health and environment. For example, extractive farming practices, which do not observe the law of return, they do not replace to the soil what is removed, lead to depletion of soil organic carbon and nutrients. It lead to decline in soil structure. That lead to loss of soil resilience, which lead to decline in ecosystem function and services, lead to loss of soil biodiversity, disruption of key processes, and this leads to hunger, malnutrition, political unrest, civil strife, war, and insecurity. And as of April 2024, there are more than 120 million refugees because of this downward spiral. And the number, as you know, both from Eastern Europe as well as the Middle East, is much greater. So soil degradation creates a vicious cycle of hunger, malnutrition, and everything bad that goes on the planetary processes. Climate change is another factor which we have to consider. Agriculture productivity is severely affected by depletion of water resources, enhanced climate variability, increase in frequency of extreme events, long-lasting drought events, which affect quite a large area, 5-time increase in water demand deficit predicted by the end of the 21st century. Millets are less resource intensive, and they are probably one of the crop tolerant to adapting climate change. I think it was 2021, which was declared by the United Nations as the year of the millet for that reason. Now, soil factors which affect micronutrient deficiency in food, and there are 17 of them, I'll come in a moment. Drought affects vitamin A, B, and C. Food contaminants by pesticides affect food quality. Extractive farming lead to depletion. Heavy metal, soil pollution, contamination causes problem of soil quality and nutritional quality. Soil degradation, I mentioned already, erosions, salinization, depletion. Selenium deficiency causes cancer. So there are many, many effects of soil degradation, which have a direct as well as indirect, which affect human nutrition. Decline in crop yield is among the direct factor, by drought, by infertility of the soil, by deficiency of micronutrients in soil, susceptibility to pests and pathogens, reduction in protein and micronutrients in food, decline in quality and quantity of protein, reduction in uptake of microelements, decline in quality of the grains. And then there are indirect effects. Environmental pollution affect directly human health as well as indirectly incidence of pathogens, positive feedback to greenhouse gas emissions, risks of soil degradation, reduction in crop yields such as in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, increase in infectious diseases by climate change. So soil degradation and climate change related issue is really a complex process and a very high priority for studying. Now, poor agricultural management leads to soil erosion, nutrient depletion, soil and environmental degradation, low yields, malnutrition, which of course cause poor health, illness, low labor productivity, and less input. So this kind of vicious cycle as well. Now there are soil-related geomedical issues. Soil pollution has a negative effects on human health, and that affects the one health concept we talked about. Microplastic is becoming a very serious issue. Microplastic is plastic which is less than 5 millimeter in diameter. There's an exponential increase in microplastic in the environment. By 2015, 6,300 million tons of plastic waste was generated, of which 79% accumulated in landfills and natural environments. By 2050, 12,000 teragram, that is 12 petagram, that is 12 billion tons, gigatons of plastic waste will accumulate projectedly in the environment. And microplastic in plant and human tissues are detected to cause lung, stool, placentas with very, very adverse effects. And one health approach on microplastic is also being studied. Microplastic can alter abiotic properties and with strong functions on ecosystems and leading to adverse effects on human health. Now, some of the nutrients which I should mention specifically in human diet, 7 macronutrients, macro, large: calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, sulfur, phosphorus, chlorine, and 17 micronutrients: iron, zinc, copper, manganese, iodine, fluoride, boron, selenium, molybdenum, nickel, chromium, silicon, arsenic, many other, 17 of them total. So 17 plus 7, 24 nutrients essentially must come from a healthy soil in which food is grown. And that is the concept. How to overcome this is eco-nutrition. It refers to interrelationship among nutrition and human health, agriculture and food production, environmental health, and economic development. It's based on the concept that there's a strong link between soil health and human health. And that brings us to the recent, since 2021 UN Food System Summit, two ideas that came out: regenerative agriculture and agroecology. So regenerative agriculture will involve practices such as compost manure, cover crops, crop rotations, residue retention, biochar application, conservation agriculture, biostimulants, fungi, biological nitrogen fixation, deficit irrigation. Several of these practices can lead to improved productivity with less input. That's called producing more from less. Now, strategy to improving availability of macro and macro elements in diet: do soil testing and then have intervention from fertilizer as needed, using micronutrient fertilizer through biofortification, zinc, molybdenum, nickel, selenium, silicon, lithium, many others, applying organic amendments, which have many of these micronutrients, use diversified cropping system, intercropping indigenous food crops, what we call forgotten crops or traditional crops. They are very important. I mentioned millet as one of the examples. And of course, regenerative agriculture, we already talked about it, growing microelement dense varieties. There are certain crop varieties which contain micronutrients more. And then global deficiency symptom can be eliminated, which now affect almost half of the human population. And because of the low bioavailability and macronutrient deficiency, which lead to poor quality diet and consumption of primarily cereal-based food. Since Green Revolution, the focus has been on 3 cereals: rice, wheat, and corn. And that has aggravated the problem because traditional food, minor cereals and root crops, yam, cassava, sweet potato, taro, colocasia, many other, sorghum, millet, finger millet, very nutrient dense, but not being widely grown because of the focus on 3 cereals. We should also think about climate resilient agriculture. because climate change is a major threat to agriculture production. Therefore, an integrated science-based approach is needed that could simultaneously improve the environment and nourish development-constrained communities. The strategy is to harness agroecology. And agroecology has four basic concepts. Barry Commoner's book called The Closing Circle highlights very clearly those concepts. The idea is to apply them to agriculture. Global warming can have both direct and indirect effects, uh, positive as well as negative, and indirect effect can also be positive and negative. The objective of adaptation mitigation is to minimize the negative effects and harness positive as much as we can. Some specific example: fertigation, which means irrigation with fertilizer mixed in it, applied directly to the plant roots when they are needed. And that can also be sprayed on edible parts of the plant through fertigation. And horticulture crops are especially uh, responsive to those input and intervention. Fertilizer applications by NPK alone may not be enough. So, what would a modern agriculture look like? It should have a healthy plant varieties, which are nutrient dense, which should have a very intense prolific root system, deep and spread with mycorrhizal association with root system, and the plant which can emit molecular based signal in case of a stress, drought, or pathogens, virus, insect and pathogens, fungal attack, etc. But most important, have a system of growing where you grow crop by no-till, leaving the residue on the soil surface, growing crops, cover crops in an off-season, and integrating crops with trees and livestock in a complex system so that we can recarbonize the soil organic matter content. The dark color in the soil reflects the organic matter content, which would increase soil biodiversity. And a high soil biodiversity makes a soil disease suppressive, so that there is no need to put more pesticides, which are very harmful to the organism. So this, in case we need then the drip fertigation with water and nutrients, including micronutrients, they should be applied. This is what the drip fertigation will look like. This is where the nutrients, zinc, selenium, iodine, iron, etc., mixed with water, applied through the roots directly, so they are absorbed and not leak out into the environment. So this is a system we would like to see develop and implement widely, so that it can improve the nutritional quality. The biostimulant is another organic farming. Nitrogen fertilizer can also improve managing micronutrients. Several studies have been done how that can be improved. Plastic mulch, although it causes pollution, have been studied that if it's a biodegradable, can be decomposed, it does help mitigate drought stress and regulate soil temperature. Then application of biochar, poultry manure, other waste, recycle, specific fertilizer. These are some of the practices where we have seen that improvement in the not only the production but also the nutritional quality of the grains can be improved. So sub-Saharan Africa is an area where soils are most degraded. We had an opportunity to attend a summit on soil health in Africa, attended by 15 presidents from African countries, and they all, that was last month, they all were expressed interest in restoring soil health in Africa. But micronutrient deficiency is a major problem in Africa, especially that of zinc. Deficiency of zinc in soil is leading to cause of child mortality, child stunting, and weakened immune system. Selenium deficiency, along with iron, iodine, zinc, is also another factor. So we would like to see strong emphasis on soil health, soil analysis, and finding out what micronutrients and macronutrients are deficit and how to intervene through biofortification and other zinc biofortification or maize is very widely studied. Small grain crops can also be enhanced by biofortification. Breeding the trace mineral variety, rice, cassava, maize, beans, they can be specifically nutrient dense if they are developed properly for that purpose. Nature-based biofortification, sub-Saharan Africa, which means you adopt improved cropping system, such as intercropping, integrating crops with trees and livestock. I showed you that example. Climate resilient agriculture system and foliar splay by zinc on wheat, organic farming, improving soil health. So the idea is we should understand what infects us, what heals us, what contaminates us, what nourishes us, and what is inhaled by us through soil improvement, soil health. We can really manage human health. And we would like to promote the idea that healthy soil is equal to healthy diet, equal to healthy people, healthy ecosystem, healthy planetary processes. And this is a part of education, not only primary school, secondary school, and the college, but throughout the educational system. Finally, I'd like to mention that the soil health is a scientific issue. And from that perspective, I would like to make a plea that global peace is also a scientific issue. Because when people are hungry, malnourished, and miserable, they pass their miseries to the environment and to the that is what causes, as I showed the spiral diagram, political instability, which unfortunately is happening very badly in the world. But improving soil health is a major tool with long-term impact on peace and stability. Advancing science of soil health, nutrition-sensitive agriculture, food processing and biofortification, and many other things that talk about regenerative agriculture, agroecology, conservation system. They are critical and high priority scientific issues with a strong impact on world peace and stability by building bridges across nations. Depleting soil organic matter and declining soil fertility, degrading soils and denuding landscape, recurring drought and intensifying heat waves, low crop yields and perpetual hunger, marginal living and desperateness are as real threat to global peace and security, and maybe more, as are ICBM and nuclear weapon proliferation. Because the fire that burns in the pit of an empty stomach is so intense and so ferocious that it can only be extinguished by the divine powers in a loaf of bread made from grains grown on healthy soil. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lal. That was an amazing presentation. For those of you who don't know, we are also at RHEA. We are helping now with the book for Dr. Lal that he has coming out. That will be on food as medicine and looking at the effects of soil health with human health and nutritional nutrient density in foods. So we are really honored to be working with him. I don't know if he is still on the call. Susanna, we wanted to open up for a question and Abe.
We have Dr. Lal.
Maybe. Just when he stopped sharing his screen, I lost him.
And he's back.
Okay.
Sure.
Perfect. We lost you for a second. Thank you so much for this presentation. We wanted to open up in case people have some questions. I know you're a bit pressed for
Okay. I got
Dr.
about
Lal's
10
a bit
minutes.
pressed for time.
Okay.
So if anyone has a specific question they want to ask, if you could raise your hand or type it in the chat, and then I can call on you to ask your question.
Were you able to see my PowerPoint though?
Yeah, it was great. We could see it was perfect, I think.
Okay, good. I got disconnected immediately after that, so I didn't know what happened.
No problem.
Okay. Well, in case there is no question now, they can send them to you, and you can. I can answer them in my email and send them back. But I'm available for another 10 minutes or so.
Okay, I will ask my question then, because you are clearly in this field of connecting soil health, agriculture, agronomic research, and nutrition for quite some years now. And I'm really curious if you see a change or more interest or more openness in the last year as the climate change is a pressuring issue, or you have always seen a very welcoming approach to your multidisciplinary research.
We are making progress. We had a book, I may have shown it to you, it's on my desk, Soil-Human Health Nexus. It was published a few years back, I think 2020. But we are also hoping to be able to teach a class which might give more information to students, undergraduate and graduate students. But a class like that theoretically should contain people from plant pathology, from veterinary science, from medical science, from College of Public Health, and of course soil science and geology. That makes it more like a seminar class rather than class which is taught by one professor. So there have been some logistical issues how to teach a class of this nature. But that part aside, research and webinars like we are doing today is another good media. I think we should continue that and have a discussion. I would also hope that we could have distant learning. For example, series of professors could put lectures together and they could be put on the internet for anybody interested in that. We are making progress, but I think coming up with a curricula that can cover all these subjects will probably take some time.
Thank you so much. I think we have a question from Gavin, if you want to ask a question.
Yes, so thank you so much for the presentation, Rattan Lal. I've followed your work for a very long time, really appreciate it. It was a question to do with biochar and whether or not you have any information offhand, of course, on biochar and impacts of nutritional density in soils amended with biochar.
Well, many people have tried to find whether soil health really improve nutritional quality, and under field condition, it's not easy to establish that one-to-one link. But we definitely know that when soils are very severely depleted of those micronutrients that I mentioned, 17 of them, including macronutrients like NPK, calcium, magnesium, the quality of the edible parts of the plant do not have those elements and amount that are needed for human health and well-being. I especially indicated that we have 40% of cropland of the world degraded, some of them very severely. And it is true that in degraded area, not only the production quantity, that means the amount of the food available is less, but the quality of the food is also very poor. And there is a link between health of the people and the health of the soil. But establishing very quantitative direct relation, there are very few studies, and I think we need to develop them. Uh, Going back in history, there were several diseases which were directly linked to deficiency of certain iodine, for example, with thyroid impact. Wherever there was iodine deficiency, that's why the salt became iodide all the time. So that was very well known for centuries. Um, Now we are talking about 17 micronutrients. I mentioned selenium, zinc, iron. Iron, a very, very serious issue in developing countries, including South Asia and Africa. Again, these things have to come from soil.
Next, Marie, if you want to ask your question.
Yeah. So I didn't understand. So thank you for the presentation. It was really nice. I didn't understand this part of adding nutrients in the water to be given to the plant in the roots, like filtration. I didn't remember the name because it looks very difficult to do.
Yeah. Well,
To
normally, for example, you may have seen pictures of rice paddies with standing water and farmer broadcasting fertilizers. That's quite a lot of waste of water. Volatilization, leaching losses, losses in surface runoff very, very high. Therefore, the use efficiency is very low. So the suggestion I was talking about is it's called drip sub-fertigation, a system developed in Israel by late Dr. Danny Hillel and his colleague. He got World Food Prize for that. The idea was they have shortage of water, obviously, there and many other parts of the world. So the idea was rather than flooding or sprinkling or furrow irrigation, let's put water through a pipe where a small hole next to the roots of the plant delivers water drop by drop. That's what's called drip irrigation. So if now you can put fertilizer in it also, iron, zinc, molybdenum, NPK, whatever else you like, and apply everything to the drip system, that will save water and fertilizer. And that's called drip sub-fertigation. So that was the concept. Producing more from less, improving the efficiency so everything is absorbed by the plants and nothing leaks out in the environment. You have to realize fertilizer applied indiscriminately, excessively, can become poisonous, because the difference between poison and medicine is a dose. And fertilizer can be poisonous if you do not use them properly. So that was the idea of fertigation. Apply as much as needed and when needed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maximilian.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm wondering if and how is the question, how can we use soil health as a holistic ecosystem service feedback indicator, and how can we use it in an agricultural term if, for example, every crop has its own microbiome, if it's changing by crop, and how do we know? I mean, the method will be meta-barcoding probably to observe soil biodiversity. How can we say this is a good microbiome or soil biodiversity? How is this one a bad one? Even though we don't know so much, or we know so little about soil biodiversity. Most of them, it's unknown, and we don't know what's good, what's bad, and what's maybe what have been lost.
That's a very good point. We, rather than applying fertilizer as indicate, that's certainly one option. But I also talk about regenerative agriculture, agroecology, conservation agriculture, intercropping, integrating trees with crops and livestock. I think that is holistic approach. Then the question of what is an indicator of soil health? People have been talking about 20 different indicators and so forth, which is again very complex. If I were to give you one indicator, it's soil organic matter content. Soil organic matter content, the heart of soil health. That amount of organic matter content should be between 3 to 5% in the root zone. 3 to 5. I know many soils where I have worked globally in South Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, in the Caribbean, Central America, in the Andean region, in the Himalayan region, where the organic matter content is less than 0.25%. Consequently, soils are most degraded. Soil organic matter content is also the food for organism. When the soils are depleted, the biodiversity is very low. Then the question is, why soil organic matter is depleted so much? People who are poor, they take away everything from the land. They take away grain for themselves. They feed the crop residue to the animal, or they'll use crop residue for other purposes, selling in the market for some income, the grazing, even the stubbles and root. The land is left nothing. This is called extractive farming. We have about 550 million small landholders, less than 2 hectares, who practice that farming. Their soils are degraded because they take away everything from the land. When people are miserable and desperate, they pass their misery to the soil. Unfortunately, soil reciprocates. We need to break that vicious cycle. I have been suggesting when farmers conserve organic matter content, pay them for ecosystem services for restoring carbon. The question is, how much is the payment? $50 per credit. One credit is 1 ton of CO2. My estimate to do that, and I presented at COP28 last year, is $100 billion just for that purpose per year. If you want to make agriculture a solution to climate, water, food, nutrition, poverty, sustainable development goal, that's the way to do it. The question is, where will that money come from? Some of it should come from countries which have been exporting oil for the last 50, 60 years. They have some responsibility, moral duty. So $100 billion, 60, 70 should come from them. Private sector should come in. And then you and me. 20% should be our responsibility. We are culprit and victims also. So we should be willing to pay for good food. Unless we are willing to sacrifice, take the big large step, we cannot solve this problem. We have those total of 550, 600 million people, and everybody should be paid, whether it's a small farmer, medium farmer, large farmer, commercial farmers, everybody should be paid accordingly. That's why I need that $100 billion. It's doable. It's not a large money. We are 8 billion people, 8.1 now. If everybody contribute $12 per year, that's $100 billion. If we did not buy 100 fighter jet, we would save quite a lot. So it's just a matter of prioritizing it.